Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a great pleasure to be here with you today, to share with you a little bit of what I've learned at the feet of three great spiritual beings of light and love. So, whenever I come to a Hindu temple, I feel very much at home. I want to tell you that many people are shocked to hear that I've been to India over 35 times. But the first time I went to India, I said, this is my home. Why did I say that? Why did I feel that? I felt that because I could resonate with the deep spirituality that is in every atom of the subcontinent of India, which has been graced by the love, devotion, and wisdom of some of the greatest masters the world has ever seen. India has been the birthplace of the oldest religion in the world, and is the oldest religion with the oldest scripture in the world, going back 3,500 years BC. So that is over 5,500 years ago. So we have much to learn from the mystics and the masters that have come from this hallowed land. And that was my experience when I came to India for the first time, to spend 3 months with my great spiritual master, Sant Gopal Singh. So I'd like to begin with a quote, which for me is the essence, not only of the Santma teaching, which literally mean the teachings of the great saints, the realized masters. And note, please note, that a realized master is neither a Hindu nor a Buddhist. He is not a Christian, he is not a Jew, he is not a Muslim or a Sufi. A realized master belongs to God and God alone. And they have shed all labels, they have shed all denominations, and they have risen to unity consciousness. My spiritual teacher shocked me one time when he said, it is good to be born in a religion, but it is bad to die in one. What did he mean by that? What did he mean by that? It is what all great sages and saints have said, that we rise to universalism, to see the same light shining not only in all human beings, but in all sentient life. And this is the message of the great Hindu sages from time immemorial. This is their teaching. So when I came to India, he said, not once but many times, and I took it quite seriously, he said, all glory, all truth, all beauty, and all bliss and happiness reside within you. So this is the message of all great saints and mystics. When Jesus came, he said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. He didn't say it's at the mall. He didn't say it was even at the temple. He didn't say it was in the movie theater. He said, the kingdom of heaven, which is a state of consciousness, which is a state of eternal happiness, is within you, within you. And that simple statement is the thesis of not only this talk, but is the thesis of all religion. And so the one job that we have, the one work that we have been called to do, the one vocation that we are here to fulfill, the one profession that we have come to complete, is the journey of meditation. So meditation is the core practice, the essential practice of all great spiritual and religious traditions. When you go deep into the tradition, you see all religions espouse some form of meditation. And that is the technology of ecstasy. That is the technology by which we experience the bliss that is your birthright. The bliss that you already are, that I am already, but we are not connected to because we are lost in the impermanence, or what the great Hindu tradition has said, the delusion or Maya. So Kabir, whom many of you from the East are well aware of, but many in the West are not well aware of, said something very beautiful, and which is repeated in India many places. The songs and the bhajans of Kabir are as well known to Indians as our Bible is here in the West. And he said, this whole creation is born out of light. All this world, this whole existence, and all beings in it came from that great light. Who then is good, and who then is bad? Who then is high, and who then is low? We are all soul. We are all Atman. And Atman is Brahma. What does that mean? It means the soul is of the same essence as that power we call God, or Allah, or Rahim, or Ram, or any other name, your Buddha nature. That is who we are. So the whole journey of meditation, the whole entire journey of meditation is to realize who we are. We are already beings of bliss. We are already beings of truth. We are already beings of consciousness. And in the Hindu tradition we say, you are Sat, Chit, Anand. Sat, truth, Chit, consciousness, Anand is bliss. That's who we already are. So we have to take a deep and reflective look and say, why are we not experiencing truth, knowledge, and bliss? We should be dancing with joy and bliss all the time. So there's an interesting story I'd like to share with you. There's a story about two boys. And these two boys were pretty naughty boys. And these two boys were always getting into trouble. And they were the kind of boys that no matter what the parents did, and they tried everything, they could not get them to behave. So they tried reprimanding them, they tried grounding them, they tried taking away all their privileges, and so on and so forth. But nothing seemed to matter. And the elder of the two boys was particularly incorrigible. And he was fearless. Whatever his parents said, he would do the opposite, and fearlessly. So, parents and fathers and mothers are out there, I hope this is not one of your children. But if it is, you'll understand. And so they kind of got so tired and so fed up that they said, you know what? Let's go to the local priest and see what he can do. Right? Because maybe the wisdom of the priest can figure out some answers. Because we haven't made any success. We haven't had any success. So they take the eldest of the two, who was particularly fearless and incorrigible, and he brought him to the minister, to the priest. And this was about maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away from the house. And walk up the stairs, take him into this room, and the father had already spoken to the priest and says, listen, see what you can do. And he leaves. So the priest is sitting there, and the young boy is sitting right in front of him, maybe 3 or 4 feet away, and he looks at the boy very penetratingly, and then he says, where is God? And the young boy doesn't know what he's talking about. Kind of like, what's going on? So another few minutes pass, total silence, nothing's happening. The boy's sitting there. And then he looks again at the young boy, and he says, this time more firmly and stronger, where is God? The boy takes a few deep breaths. He's wondering what is going on. He starts to get a little bit afraid, a little bit scared. Finally, another few moments pass, and the priest says, this time very forcefully, very strongly, looks him directly in the eye and says, where is God? And at that point, the young boy jumps up out of his seat, He runs for the door, he runs down the stairs, he runs out the door, and he runs full steam all the way home 1/2 mile, not stopping for anything. He comes in, enters the house, the front door, runs up the stairs to his room, closes the door behind me, and goes into the closet and shuts the door behind him. His little brother sees him in such a state, comes up to the room, knocks on the closet door, and says to him, he says, because he had never seen his brother afraid of anything. So he says to his brother, "What happened?" And his brother says in a very quiet and meek voice, "God is lost and they're blaming us." It is a very telling tale. And it is the story of our lives, that God is lost. And that is the answer why we are not experiencing the innate bliss, the innate truth, and the innate love that is who you are and who I am. So, our journey to reclaim the heart of who we are is a journey through meditation. And all the great mystics and masters have said, if you don't go within, you go without. So our journey back to this place of bliss and happiness and truth and consciousness starts in the silence of our own soul. When we sit down and we close our eyes and we seek the God that is already within us in the silence of our own souls. So why is it that we do not experience this fundamental reality? The great Hindu sages, again, have given us the answer succinctly and beautifully. They said, what is that knowledge, knowing which everything else is known? What is that knowledge, knowing which everything else is known? And they reply in the same breath, it is the knowledge of the true self. And that knowledge of the true self can only be understood through the inner journey of meditation. When we look at the lives of all of the great Hindu and Buddhist and Jain and Sikh masters, we see that they spent many years and months in seclusion, in meditation, whether in the Himalayas or in the back of their own home. And it was through that deep inner work that they connected to that essential self. And in connecting to that essential self, experienced that reality. So, this world is actually the world of Maya or delusion. Why do we say it is the world of Maya or delusion? We feel that it's real. We see that it feels real. We can hear it, we can taste it, we can touch it, we can smell it. Why do the great sages and mystics say this is Maya, this is not real? Why do they tell us that? So it's a very interesting story that helps us understand this reality. And it's about a very wise sage who is very in touch with the divine and that truth within him, and had a revelation one day. And the revelation was that in a few weeks, a wind would pass through the town that he was living in and the whole area. And this wind was very powerful, and this wind, that if it touched anyone, it would immediately make them crazy. And so he warned the town. He said, when this wind comes in 2 weeks, I want everybody to be in their homes and to close their doors and their windows. And whatever you do, do not go outside during which the time this wind is passing through the town. Because if you do, you will go crazy. You will go mad. You'll start doing crazy things. And so, unfortunately, everybody decided that he was crazy and that there was no point in following such an absurd piece of advice. And sure enough, When the wind came, nobody paid any heed to his advice. And the wind swept through the town. And as it swept through the town, everybody's behavior changed with it. And people who were normal, quiet, kind people all of a sudden became angry. They started becoming violent. They started becoming jealous and resentful. They started becoming ungrateful. And then very shortly after that, disagreements started, and disagreements led to conflicts, and conflicts started leading to violent warfare, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, the sage who had stayed inside, when he came out, he saw that the whole world had gone crazy. This whole area had gone crazy. All these people were crazy. But because he was the only sane one, they said, "You're the crazy one. You're the one who's crazy. This is normal." And so, of course, this is a metaphor for the world today. The great masters and sages have been coming since time immemorial and telling us in very clear terms, what is this crazy wind? This is the wind of duality consciousness. This is the wind of ego. And it is from ego that all pain and separation, it is from this duality consciousness that all wars and epidemics, all ethnic rivalry, the desecration of our planet, and all the evil that you see going on has arisen from. And what is the premise of this duality consciousness? The premise is that whatever I do to anyone else will not affect me. That I can achieve whatever I want at the expense of anybody else. That I, as a religion, can dominate any other religion and it will not affect me. That I, as a country, can dominate another country and it will not affect me. And so on and so forth. That is the essence of duality consciousness, and that is the essence of why the world is the way it is today. And spirituality is the remedy for duality consciousness. And the remedy for duality consciousness is very simple. We are all one. And whatever I do to anyone else, I, in reality, am doing to myself, not in some poetic, fancy way, but in the absolute truth. Any act of violence in thought, word, and deed goes out to the universe and it resonates with every other thought that is similar to that and comes right back to us like a boomerang and gives us sevenfold the anger or hatred or resentment that we sent out. This is how duality consciousness produces all pain, all suffering, all wars, all ethnic rivalry. If we want to change the world, and we all want to change the world, we want a world filled with peace and joy, we want a world filled with harmony, but it will only happen when we start with ourselves. So what I've noticed over the years, and in reflection from the teachings of our great masters, is that people have a tremendous desire to change others, and a tremendous optimism in their belief to change others, but a tremendous pessimism in their belief to change themselves. So we are very confident we can change the world, but we cannot change ourselves. And that is duality consciousness. Because so long as our attention is rooted outside, instead of inside of ourselves, our focus is on changing others instead of changing ourselves. My great spiritual master said, one human being who has realized the self can change the whole world. One realized being who has conquered his mind can conquer the world. And indeed, that is the only way the world has ever changed. When we look at the lives of all the great mystics and masters, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Jesus, Muhammad, Kabir, Guru Nanak, they were the pole, they were the sacred pole from which that energy of love, light, and life emanated out, changing anyone who came into their presence. So change must come from within. We have to be, as Gandhi said, the change that we seek. And that will only happen when we go inside and realize our essential self. So, when we talk about the 4 core principles, what are the 4 core principles of the meditation journey? I want to share with you what I call the 4 core principles of the meditation journey and how these core principles transform our lives and let us become instruments of transformation in the world. Until and unless we understand these things and how the universe works, our efforts to help others will always be handicapped. So what? To begin with, we talk about thinking positively, speaking positively, and acting positively. And that experience of thinking positively, acting positively, and speaking positively come directly when we contact the source of all positivity. And what is the source of all positivity? It is your own self. One of the biggest lessons I learned when I came to the feet of my spiritual master, Sankhya Pulsa, was that any negativity that came within his frame, within his company, within his vibration, was immediately turned into the positive. So when we are pure positivity, anything that comes toward us is also changed into the positive. And we know this on a personal experiential level. Because we know that when we hang around with people who are uplifting and kind and joyous, we get a little bit of that, and we walk away uplifted and kind ourselves, a little bit. And we also know that when we keep the company of people who are negative, who are complaining, who are filled with anger and ingratitude, resentment and jealousy, we get of that as well. When we walk away, what do we feel? We feel drained. We feel empty. So I learned in sitting at the feet of these great masters that their energy, without them saying anything, could transform a human being. They didn't have to say anything. That it was their radiation, which was filled with love and light, that changed other people regardless of whether they said anything. When someone came into the presence who had many, many doubts about spirituality and meditation, and saw for the first time Hazur Baba Sahib Singh, who was my spiritual master's master, all of his doubts vanished without him asking a single question. He said, I look at you, and all of my questions disappear. All of my doubts disappear. So this is the power of positivity. This is the power of someone who is nothing but complete love. That energy changes us. So when we go inside and we tap that resource of pure positivity, we begin to experience that as well. What happens is we begin to see the world with different eyes. We begin to see the world with eyes that are now transformed and infused with love. And as we experience that love, we become vehicles for that love. And anyone who comes into our presence is also transformed. And this is the true spiritual revolution that will change this world. Nothing else will change this world. Because it is only when we realize our essential self and we experience true and lasting love that we can change the world. And unless we experience lasting love and lasting peace and lasting bliss, our minds will rule the day. And hatred and violence and ingratitude and all of those negative qualities will continue to rule the day. So we learn the essential truth that Buddha and all the great teachers have said, that as you think, so you become. As we think, so we become. If we think negatively, we're going to become negative. And we're going to attract more and more negativity to us. So when we contact that source of pure positivity, all of a sudden the whole universe changes. So the second point is to live joyously in the living present. To live joyously in the living present. And meditation, if anything at all, if it is anything at all, is a journey into the present moment. The past does not exist, the future does not exist, and yet we spend, scientists tell us, somewhere between 80 and 85% of our day regretting the past or worrying about the future. And my spiritual master said that these two, regretting the past and worrying about the future, are like two spikes in our vein, draining us of our lifeblood. So meditation brings us into the living moment, and in that living moment, there is inherent joy. But we're so stuck in the past and the future that we never get in the present moment. The present moment is the gift that we can receive only when we're conscious. So meditation is a journey into the moment-to-moment awareness. Now, some of us discover this in very strange ways. And one way that often people discover this is that they, having a very hard time, crisis or drama or very difficult circumstances are happening all around them. And they realize in that moment that the only place where there's any peace is in this present moment. Some of us discover it that way. But the easy way to discover it is through meditation. So when we're able to block out all of the thinking that is going on simultaneously, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and enter into that stillness, we empty ourselves out so that God can pour himself in. It is the mental chatter, the endless mental chatter, the continuous monkey mind that is driving us all crazy. And we're not present. So meditation is the high road to getting out of hurry and worry, to stop regretting the past and worrying about the future. It is to realize, as Emerson said, that there is no moment in all eternity that is more precious than this moment. And Kabir, one of the great saints we've already introduced, has said that every single breath is more valuable than all the three worlds, the physical, the astral, and the causal. Every breath is more valuable. To be present in that moment is more valuable than all the three worlds. That's how great a gift it is. So we learn, by being in the present moment, to let go of attachments. To stop clinging to what we think we should have. And just be present and see what the moment brings in abundance. So my master used to say, draw from today on, resolve from today on to draw a thick veil over the past, and forget the past, and live here in the present moment. So step 3. Step 3 comes naturally out of the other 2 steps. When we move out of our habituated, reactive, and conditioned patterns of thinking, acting, and doing, and speaking, we begin to have awareness that there are other people out there. That there's a whole universe out there. That people are suffering. That people need help. But we can only get to that stage when we get out of our little melodramas. So my master used to say, what's the steps in meditation that you experience? The first step is you stop complaining. Step number 1, nothing to complain about anymore. Step number 2, you stop praying for yourself and you start praying for others. Why? Because we're not consumed by our own little problems anymore. And we realize the fundamental truth that comes out of the deepest meditation experiences, which is, if I want to be happy, I need to make other people happy. That the true definition of a human being is not one who lives for himself, but one who lives for others and serves others. That's the definition of a human being. If we want to be unhappy, I can give you a simple formula. Live for yourself. Simple formula for unhappiness. Be concerned about your own life and nobody else, and guaranteed unhappiness. Absolute guarantee. Because we become more and more self-absorbed. And it is an exact opposite is the nature of reality. So when we go inside, we begin to see we're all connected. We begin to see that what I do to you is going to affect me directly, not in 2 years, not in 10 years, not next lifetime, but right now. And we know that we are one consciousness in many different forms, manifesting in many different ways. So we learn to serve others without reward, without acknowledgement, without praise, without expecting anything in return. Why? Because it's our own joy that we get from this experience. And this is why when you look at all the great saints and masters, all the great contemplatives, service comes naturally for them. They're not trying to please anybody. It comes out of the abundance of their heart. They're not forcing anything. And if people don't acknowledge them, and if people don't pay any attention to them, and if people abuse them, they're still doing what they're doing because that's who they are. Just like the sun shines, doesn't matter whether it's on good people or bad people, whether it's a rainy day or not a rainy day, the sun does its thing, it just continues to shine. So when we realize the essential self, which is in itself selfless, we just doing our thing. And we can't stop doing it no matter how people respond to it, because that's who we are. That's the essential nature of who we are. So, we resolve to live for others. We come out of the experience of every meditation inspired to give. Naturally. And it's not a business deal. We're inspired to give because that's who we are. The last step. Rejoice. Rejoice. And accept life unconditionally for what it is. What does that mean? It means that it is only when we totally accept what is happening in the moment that we can get into that state of non-judgmental awareness. So there's a very interesting story of Rabbi Abbasra. And Rabbi Abbasra is a great Sufi saint. And she had many disciples. She was a very evolved being. And she was talking about levels of acceptance, levels of understanding, and levels of gratitude. And rather than give her students the answer, she said, well, I want to hear from you. You tell me what are some levels of acceptance and surrender to God's will. And so one disciple said very clearly, he said, well, I think that is when, no matter what happens, we understand that it is God's will. That it happened because it had to happen. If it didn't have to happen, it wouldn't have happened. And that we have to accept it. And so Rabbi said, that's great, wonderful, terrific. But that's only like C-. So she encouraged another disciple came forward, and another disciple said, well, Rabbi, I think it's when we not only accept it as God's will, but we celebrate it. It becomes sweet. So how many of you heard the term sweet is thy will, right? You know, there's mango sweet, and there's sugar sweet, there's agave sweet now. We have all different types of sweetness, but we all know that sweet is sweet, right? When something happens is in the world or to us that we don't like, is it sweet? Or are we complaining? Or are we bitter? Or are we resentful? Or are we hateful? Or are we... So she said, that's good. Yes, we should. But that's not the highest level. So they said, well, Robbie, we give up. What's your point of view? What's your vision? She said, it is when whatever happens, we not only totally accept it, but we don't notice that it is good or bad. We don't notice whether it's good or bad. Because it is. It is thinking alone that puts a label on something whether it's good or bad. And Shakespeare summed it up very beautifully. He said, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It is our judgment of things that makes it good or bad. We are the ones who are labeling it. So in the state of realization, we realize that whatever is happening has to happen. And it is for the highest good, even though we cannot see it from our limited perspective. And this produces something amazing. It produces a state of equanimity and a peace that can never, ever be disturbed. And this is the profound realization that when Jesus was on the cross being crucified, he said, Father, forgive them, they know now what they do. A state of equanimity and peace that goes beyond rational understanding. So meditation is that technology that brings us to unity consciousness and aligns ourselves with the divine will. We are here to be instruments for the divine will. And it is through meditation that we can align this little will with the divine will and come into conscious contact with the source of all bliss, all truth, and all happiness on a moment-to-moment basis. That's what the journey is, and that's what we're all here to complete. That is what the human form is given to us to experience. So, when we look at the meditation practice, you can summarize it in 3 steps. First, physical stillness. Second, mental stillness, which is the conquering, the stilling of our monkey minds, getting out of the judgmental mind. And third, absorption into the divine reality, the self that we already are. And those are the 3 simple steps that you will find in all essential meditation practices. So we have to still the body, because without a still body, we cannot still the mind. We have to bring our attention to a state of one-pointed focus. And in that one-pointed focus, when we have emptied ourselves of all the little self and the little ego, then we can be absorbed into the divine self, to the essential, permanent self that we really are. So, I would like to offer today to lead you in a simple meditation practice, and with these very simple steps. So each of us, wherever you are in your journey, can sit and enjoy a little bit of the joy and the peace that awaits each and every one of us. So, my spiritual master said something very powerful to me. He said, 1 ounce of practice is worth a ton of theory. So if you remember nothing else, remember that all glory, all peace, all truth, all love, and all happiness is within you. And to practice every day, no matter what else happens. To practice every day. So let me lead you in this inter-spiritual meditation. If you can turn the lights down, it would be great. So there are 3, as I said, 3 simple steps. The first step is I want you to get into a position in which you can sit comfortably for 10 minutes. And once you assume that position, take a moment to deeply relax so that we are able to sit without moving. So we want to be in physical stillness, because if the body is moving and restless, the mind will also be moving and restless. Right? And once you're in a comfortable position, we're going to go into the second step. And that is, we're going to close our eyes very gently as if we're going to sleep. And we're going to bring our attention to this point right in the middle of our forehead, which in the Hindu tradition we call the Shiva Netra. They call it the eye of Shiva. But it is your inner spiritual eye, which has been referred to by every mystic. The Sufis have called it the Swayam. The Theosophists have called it the 10th door. Jesus called it the single eye. So in every tradition, this is the point where the material and the spiritual worlds meet. So we're going to bring our attention to this point, also called the seat of awareness or the seat of consciousness. We're going to look intently and minutely into the center of whatever we see in front of us. And this is the gazing, the inner gazing, fixing the attention into this inner darkness. And now inner darkness is actually seen by the inner spiritual eye. So when we look intently, minutely, and penetratingly, the mind will then start to give us thought. So what we want to do is the mental stillness piece is the second part. We want to still the mind. How are we going to do that? Well, let us begin by giving the mind a task that will help engage it and direct it inward instead of into continuous thinking. So we're going to ask you to repeat any name of divinity or any name of God that you feel comfortable. If you're from a Hindu tradition, and there are so many different names of God. Om Shanti is a typical mantra, but Ram is another common mantra. There are many names of God in the Hindu tradition. If you're from a Christian tradition, you can repeat the name of Jesus. You can just repeat the name peace. In any name or tradition is fine. We're going to repeat that very slowly or even at intervals so it does not disturb our inner gaze. All right? So the attention is here, our eyes are closed, the five senses are being shut down so that we can reverse the flow of attention to go within. And as the attention begins to flow inward instead of outward through the five senses, we begin to penetrate through that darkness. And as we penetrate through that darkness, and if the mind remains relatively still, then we will begin to experience this third step, which is absorption. The experience of light, radiance, what the Hindu tradition called Nad, or Udgit, or Jyoti, which lights, or Shruti, which means the primal sound. That light, that primal sound, is already within you. And if we can hold the attention there long enough, it will begin to manifest. First, as the experience of not all darkness, and then sometimes as clouds. And if we keep penetrating through that, sparks of light seem to appear, or shafts of light. And then sometimes sudden bursts of color. And then from sudden bursts of color, those lights begin to stabilize. And they become more and more intense. And the more intense they become, the brighter they become, the more love, the more bliss, and the more truth we begin to experience. And I want, as that happens, whatever you see in your seat of awareness, just absorb yourself into that, the third step. So it is about reabsorbing. It is about expansive awareness into that infinite self. So we don't have to clutch at anything, we don't have to hold anything. All you have to do is moment-to-moment awareness. Now, if thoughts come up, just disengage and keep bringing the attention back to that point of focus. Notice the thought, disengage from it, bring it back to the point of focus. And whatever you do, don't judge anything, don't critique anything, don't analyze anything. Just be in the joyful moment that is. And allow the bliss that is yourself to come through to you. So this setting will be for about 10 minutes, and we pray to all of the great luminaries and mystics and saints to bless and guide each and every one of us. And in the name of my own spiritual masters, we pray that each and every one of us be given what is in our best interest. So let us begin. And just gradually open your eyes very gently, very softly. But it's important as we come out of our meditation practice to absorb the experience, the silence, the insight, the joy, the moment-to-moment awareness that we get when we sit in meditation. And take a few moments to integrate that into your awareness, so that when we get up, we're a more peaceful, more loving, more centered, more joyful human beings. That is the goal of the meditation practice. So, and I'd like to take a few minutes to answer any questions or hear any comments from the audience here. But before doing so, I'd like to end with two prayers. Prayer from Sant Gopal Singh and from our current illumined Master Sant Rajendra Singh, which are really the culmination of this inner journey. So my own spiritual master said, what are the realizations that come out of this journey of meditation? And he tells us there is only one caste, there is only one religion, and there is only one God. There is only one caste, the caste of humanity. There is only one religion, the religion of love. There is only one Dharma, the Dharma of truth. There is only one God, the omnipresent, the omniscient and omnipotent. And there is only one language, the language of love. And Sant Rajendra Singh, in his own inspiring way, tells us, may our prayers and our meditations transform this world into a garden of everlasting joy, and may each of us spread light and love, bringing peace to the whole world. So with that, I'd just thank you, and maybe we can take a few questions or comments or practical questions you might have about starting a practice of meditation, or anything that's in your heart.
Well, let us give a thanks to Andrew first.
How would you suggest, or what kind of advice would you give for studying this in a family with children?
At first take, it seems like when you're busy with family, it's hard to have time for meditation. But I'll share with you a little story to begin with, and then give you some more practical advice. So there's a very busy man, very busy businessman who came to a Swami, and he had heard the talk by the Swami, and the Swami had said, listen, I want you to meditate 20 minutes or half an hour a day. And the businessman was living a very busy life. He had a family, he was traveling all the time, and he said, Swamiji, what you say is very good, I just don't have the time for that. What do you recommend? And so Swami said, for busy people like you, an hour is enough. That's the problem. We're too busy. But busy with what? Busy with delusion. Busy with emptiness. Busy with things that do not fill us with joy and love. So you have to carve out some of the things that are unimportant and take them out of our lives. And you will find time. As a family member myself, I can tell you, I remember getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning when the kids were sleeping, and I was meditating. There's always time. There was always a place. And I even remember it sometimes when my son was very, very sick and he needed constant attention, I would put him on my lap and meditate with him on my lap. And you know what? It helped him because the vibrations that come out of the meditation practice are healing. So there is always, are you listening, everybody? All you busy people. The super busy people. But ever notice that when people come up to you, the first thing you say, they say, how are you? You say, I'm very busy. When was busyness ever a virtue? Right? Be who you are. Don't be busy. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
You have different theories in terms of how to meditate. One theory is you should open your eyes and meditate because you don't want to shut yourself in the world. It's much more living in the world and then absorbing it versus shutting the eyes, which implies you're shutting down from the world. I don't know if you have any thoughts on what those different theories are and which one would you suggest?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to. What is important is not whether your eyes are open or not. What is important is whether you're making contact with the reality within you. In the beginning stages, because of the outer distractions that the five senses give us, it's very hard to contact the self within us. Once we contact that self, then with open eyes you are always in the self. It doesn't matter, you can be meditating upside down in a pool, and you're still in contact with that reality. Once the divine light, the Jyoti Shruti manifests, once you are swimming in that, you are swimming in it all the time, whether your eyes are closed, whether your eyes are open, is immaterial. It's irrelevant. But in the beginning stages, you will find that it is very helpful to close your eyes and to be in a silence and seclusion, because the distractions outside will keep your attention outside. But once you become an adept, it's irrelevant. So it's a question of where you are in the beginning of your journey. When you're a young student, you need a lot of help, right? First graders, they need a little coddling, they take their nap in the morning, you can't give them more than 10, 15 minutes of curriculum. But when they get to be a college student, they don't need the nap anymore, right? And they're capable because their concentration is developed. So in the same thing, when we're beginning our journey, we want to take care to protect our practice, to establish it. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I want to ask a question, like stress, focus, technology. Do you feel that the present day's technology, like for example, texting, always looking at your phone and not being in the moment, wherever we are, is creating too much uneasiness and stress for every age? Even little children, when I come to temple, they are playing with those iPhones. So how would you give us a message to address that, not be taken over by that? Thank you.
I think that's a great question. And it's funny you should ask that, because I wanted to share a story with you. A story that I recently heard at the World Parliament of Religions. This was a Native American who had come and had spoken, and he said, we have created technologies to destroy the soil. We have created technologies to deplete our food sources and pollute our water and our rivers. We have created technologies that are melting the ice caps, right? And he said to everybody, he said, when will you create the technologies to melt the heart? And what is meditation? It is the technology to melt the heart. When we taste, when we enter into the temple of our innermost soul and experience even an atom's weight of the peace and the joy that is there, these things will drop off automatically. It is because we are not connected that we get distracted in all these things. But as a teacher, I can tell you that they have done many studies on the use of these outer technologies. And while they can be used, they need to be controlled. Because instead of increasing concentration, this is what we're finding in the schools, they are decreasing concentration. Students who are attached to these technologies, their attention span gets less and less and less and less. They get more and more distracted to the extent they can't even read a book anymore. So these technologies have to be controlled. They have to be very carefully monitored. Or we will lose not only our attention span, but our social skills as well. Because they're also pulling people away from interpersonal reactions. You go to New York City, you go to a restaurant, I often go to restaurants in my travels, and you'll see people at a table. Just the other day I saw 4 people at a table, and they each had their Android or there was no talking going on. Occasionally they would look up, have a cup of tea, and then go back to, they weren't not present. They're in a virtual reality, not in reality. So we have to be very careful that this is not reality. It's one more delusion within the delusion that we are already living. How many more delusions do we need? So we have to be very careful. Now, technology can be very useful. So it is a double-edged sword. We have to use it and not let it abuse us. Right now, for the most part, it is abusing people. And it is causing more distraction, restlessness, and agitation. We have to be very careful. Parents have to be careful. Educators have to be careful. People have to understand. I'm not even beginning to talk about the negative health effects of the radiation from these kinds of instruments. Because everything is energy. And the energy that comes off from these devices is actually counterproductive to your health. And they've actually done a lot of studies to show that. So be very careful. And just having your cell phone on you, shouldn't keep it next to your heart. You shouldn't keep it next to any of your vital organs. And you shouldn't keep it on at night. You should turn all these things off. Because they're emitting radiation. That radiation affects. So give a whole talk on that, but I think you've got the message. Yeah, somebody over there.
So I think that if someone who's very interested in get doing this, right? And you just started meditation, whatever. How does the person know the right path? Or how do you not be distracted? Or the path really is, even if you feel good, like you fall asleep, like that, but still you know it's not going the right direction. How does one know that without some kind of access to a guru or something like that?
Well, I think you answered your question. I think the 3 pillars of a meditative life, a contemplative life, a spiritual life, if you will, are first, spiritual practice on a daily basis. Second, spiritual guidance from an authentic, realized being, from a true spiritual, competent spiritual master. And 3, spiritual community. Those 3 are essential. We need guidance because if we don't have the guidance of a competent teacher, we have the guidance of our misguided mind. So you take your choice, all right? I don't think it's worth trusting our own mind in the beginning stages. We should trust the guidance of those who have been there, done that, who have gone to the destination and returned. And most of the questions that you come up on the spiritual path can be answered with appropriate guidance from a competent spiritual teacher. And that is why all traditions, but particularly Hinduism, by the way, Hinduism and Buddhism, stress the need for spiritual teacher or spiritual master. Very strong emphasis, and probably one of the greatest gifts of Hinduism in my mind is the fact that they condition people to seek spiritual teachers. This is one of the greatest gifts, all right, in, I think, the Hindu and Buddhist traditions, is that they recognize the need and recognize the value of those who have achieved something, who have achieved something more than us. You know, when I came to my master, my spiritual master said to me about his own guru, Hazur Baba Sawan, he said, listen, I don't know how great he is. All I know is he's far, far greater than anything I could have imagined. So just being in the presence of something like that is guidance in its own self. So I would say, if I can answer that question, I would say start with those 3 pillars, because they're all essentials. Now, in the meditative journey, inner guidance comes automatically through thought transference from the spiritual master. Okay? So just like you have telephones today, we have, you know, our Androids and our smartphones, and we're connected to the internet. Well, there's another system out there called the internet. And that internet is available to all of you, and that can connect you directly to your higher self, which is who the competent master really is. It is your higher self. So we want to connect it and stay connected to the internet, which, by the way, is the best plan you'll ever get. Because it's the unlimited plan. And that's the plan we want to be on, right? We want to have that direct guidance all the time. And it is possible, it is doable. And we need that connection. So those are both essentials, I would say. I hope I'm addressing your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay.
So
Thank you. I would also, just as a conclusion, I'd just like to say that I always say this at the end of all of my talks, that if you got anything good here, all credit goes to my spiritual masters. And when I'm at my best, I'm like a parrot, giving out their teachings, not my teachings. But if there were any errors or mistakes or inaccuracies, you can blame me for that. So on this path, all credit goes to the great masters of all spiritual traditions, and I humbly place all praise that you may have and all thanks at their holy feet. Thank you. Many blessings to each and every one of you. Thank you.
We have a meditation center in Columbia Heights, very near to our, if you know, the old temple in Main Street, or the Polk Street. It's only 5 minutes away from that. So that you are welcome to join us on every Friday evenings. We also alternate Sundays. We have a meditation program right here in the temple. And since you come here on Sunday, there is, of course, the spiritual discourse at 10:30. But if you come a little early for meditation, at 9 o'clock, you can join in the meditation room in the Science and Spirituality called Sant Rajendra Singh Ji Maharaj Meditation Room. It's every Sunday, 9 o'clock meditation hour. So please join that, and then you can come to the discourse. There's also yoga and everything before that. So it's a wonderful way to spend time here in the temple. But I do invite you to join our regular meditation, or called satsangs, on Friday at the meditation center. The address is on the flyers. So thank you, Andrew, and thank you for inspiring many of us. I want to answer the ladies one quick question about the family. We do have a meditation program for children. So please connect with my wife. She leads that. Or we start meditating, or we start guiding meditation for children as soon as they can cognitively understand how to sit quietly. And you will not believe how receptive they are. They're much more receptive than adults. I can guarantee that. They meditate at the age of 3, 4. I have pictures showing that they're meditating for minutes. We just had a 1-hour med-off in our Diwali celebration, and there were 7 and 8-year-old kids who did not move a bit for 1 hour. So that's the kind of training they get, but it has to be at their age level. So we have through the stories, through the inspiration that they can understand, not necessarily the big lecture that we all seek, you know. But you will be amazed how receptive they are. So we have meditation for everyone, irrespective of the age or what background we come from. And it has nothing to do with any of our money or class or anything. Everybody can meditate, and our center is open for everyone all the time. So please reach out to us. Once again, thank you, Andrew. Thank you to the Hindu Temple of Minnesota, and thank you all of you. We'll look forward to seeing you more.